Hey there, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm happy to be here for a newsletter special. It's newsletter day at Stonemaier Games, and there's a lot to go over. I have it on my other screen here. I'll pull it up as we get to talking about that. But most importantly, I hope you were doing well. If you're in the U.S., I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. If you're not in the U.S., I hope you also had a good week last week. It was nice to join this live cast remotely from Virginia for the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I see Carlos is off to a hot start here with a question. He says, how would you sum up Stonemaier Games' 2024? Were there any pleasant surprises or things that exceeded your expectations? I always have a hard time summing up that much time. It's a lot of time, but I probably have some posts, Carlos, some articles coming about looking back at 2024 retrospectively. And I do that a little bit in the newsletter here, right? I talk about it here. I'll pull that up. Well, no, I'll leave this off for now. But I'll get to it later in the live cast. But let's see. Were there any pleasant surprises or things that exceeded your expectations? Well, I was really pleasantly surprised by the reception to Wormspan. I was very, very excited about it. I think Connie put so much time into it. Elizabeth's guidance for it was amazing. And I spent really a lot of time playtesting and offering feedback on Wormspan so that it would stand alone as a unique thing and not be dismissed as a reskin of Wingspan, which it isn't. And so I was a little worried early on after the initial announcement that some very vocal people in the gaming community took that as their mantle, like, oh, this is just a reskin, it's a cash grab, that sort of thing. And so I was a little worried after seeing that. That was my main concern going into it. And then when it happened, I was like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. But fortunately, I think people have actually tried the game and realized that it is not a reskin of Wingspan, and just done really well in terms of ultimately bringing joy to people. It appears to have accomplished that goal. So that was I was hopeful, but I was pleasantly surprised by how that actually worked out after people actually played the game. Yeah. I turned the question around to those of you out there who have paid attention to Stonemaier Games or have just enjoyed games in general in 2024. Was there anything that was a pleasant surprise to you in 2024 related to gaming or Stonemaier Games specifically? Ian asked for my thoughts on SETI. So Ian, I do have a video about the game SETI that I released a few weeks ago, I believe. So feel free to check out that video to see some of my favorite mechanisms in the game. I think that might help you figure out if it is a good fit for you. I recommend checking out the video. It's like 5 minutes long. Garrett says, am I watching or reading anything good lately? And good morning to you as well, Garrett. What am I reading? So we just finished watching Wednesday, the show that came out last year. So I'm kind of catching up on that. I had a good time watching it. It felt a little bit like Harry Potter, actually, in terms of the magical boarding school aspect of it and a mystery to be solved over the course of a semester. I guessed correctly on a key part of the mystery about 10 minutes into the first episode. So that kind of felt good to figure that out so quickly. And there was another part of the mystery that I missed that I missed later on. We watched that. We're watching Shrinking right now on Apple TV. We're also finishing Arcane, the last season of Arcane, the final 3 episodes. I think we're actually down to the final episode, and we're watching Survivor, of course, as well. Reading right now, I am reading another romantasy novel. I'm enjoying these romantasy novels. This is another one. I forget the name of it. It's one that I've talked about before. It's a vampire world. Here, I'll try to pull up the name of it. No, I don't think I'll be able to find it off the cuff here. But it's a world of vampires, and there's stuff that happens in this world of vampires, specifically with a character who has some unique magical powers. I forget the name of it. I know this is very vague. I forget the name of it, but I'm enjoying this book right now. Yeah, that's what I'm reading right now. What about you, Garrett? What are you reading or watching right now that you're enjoying? Melissa's learning Tapestry today. That's exciting, Melissa. We're happy to help if you have any questions along the way, either in the Tapestry Facebook group, on Board Game Geek, or on our website. But I hope the learning process goes well for Tapestry. I tried to design it so that the core concepts of the game are pretty distilled and I don't want to say simple, but streamlined so that you can learn it fairly easily and with the complexity coming from all the various benefits that you can gain on the tracks and the cards in the game. Yeah, so I hope you have a good experience learning it, and we're here to help if you need any help. Chad says he's been selling off some games that I never get to the table. I'm surprised on how good it feels to get those games out of my house. Have you ever felt that? I've been thinking about why that is. You know, it does. I'm looking over at my Calyx shelf over here. So what happens on my shelf is that things pile up on top of the shelf, and I never realized how good it feels to clear off that top until I actually do clear it off. And the only way for me to do that is to get rid of some games that I haven't played in a while. I usually do a big cull and a big giveaway once a year. So yeah, I think it just feels good to clear off that clutter a little bit. Once a shelf becomes cluttered instead of organized, I think that does something to especially for shelves in our houses that we see every day. We walk past those shelves every day. Darius says, thanks to your book and blog post on Kickstarter, my first ever campaign got the Project We Love badge. That's awesome, Daria. Congratulations. I hope the campaign is going well, and thanks for following along with the blog and the book. Garrett says his pleasant surprise for 2024 was Vantage, which will be a 2025 game. But yeah, Garrett, you were hugely instrumental in improving Vantage over the course of this year. So I really appreciate that. We're actually very, very close now to sending the final files to the printer for Vantage. I think it'll happen this week. We have a few more things to iron out, but we're very, very close, which I'm really excited about after this very long process. Long in a good way, but also just long. Stefan says that they generally don't like I split you choose games or I cut you choose games, but they say that Stamp Swap was a pleasant surprise. I'm really glad to hear that. That was what we were aiming for with Stamp Swap. Dominic was also delighted by Vantage. Dominic also playtested Vantage and gave us some great feedback on it. Susanna says her pleasant surprise was Diatoms or Diatoms. As her first crowdfunding game, I didn't really know what it would be like, and my expectations were exceeded. I think that's wonderful that you took the plunge into crowdfunding a little bit, Susanna, with Diatoms, and I'm really glad that I backed that too. It's a really beautiful game. Thank you so much for teaching it, and yeah, I've been delighted by it so far. Played a lot of games over the Thanksgiving break. I almost too long. I was with a family back in Virginia, and we played Caution Signs a lot. That was a big hit. We went to a game cafe called Unplugged in Midlothian, Virginia, and we played Hues and Cues, Camel Up, Catch the Moon, and one other one that I'm forgetting. What did we start out with? Another game. I think we started with Hues and Cues. And we also played both versions of Ticket to Ride Kids. We played Ghost Train and First Ticket or First Journey, whatever the first one is called. First Journey, I think. And we played a game called Lattice Hawaii that was new to me. I played some Patchwork with my little nephew who continues to crush me at Patchwork. Played some pool, played some disc golf. I got my 5th disc golf ace in Virginia while we were there in front of a bunch of family members, in front of my sister's family, which was a delight. So we had a really, really good gaming week last week overall. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but we decided at the last minute to fly instead of drive. Usually I drive back to Virginia, and it's 2 completely full driving days. It's essentially a 15-hour drive from St. Louis to Virginia, including charging stops. And so while it was a little stressful to fly, we actually got really lucky. The weather wasn't a problem. We had very smooth flights both ways. And I don't think I've ever done this. Like we literally decided 2 days before the trip that we were going to fly instead of drive. And we were able to get plane tickets that were a little bit more expensive than normal, but not all that expensive. So I'm curious if any of you have ever done that. Have you ever bought plane tickets within like 3 or 4 days of when you were going to travel? And did that work out for you? I feel like we got a little lucky this time in multiple ways. But I'll take the luck. It worked out. And hopefully, if you had holiday travels over the last week, that they worked out for you as well. Let's see. Aaron was surprised by Vantage announcement and how much they fell in love with Wormspan to the point that I felt compelled to be part of the demo team at Gen Con. Thank you so much for doing that, Aaron. I really appreciate that. Yeah, that's wonderful that when you fall for a game and you're willing to and you're eager to share with other people. That's wonderful. Julio says, if I heard about Letterboxd, it's an app revolved around movie reviews and movie watch lists. I haven't heard about that, Julio, as far as I know, but I'll make a note of it and check it out. Letterboxd. Yeah, thanks for that recommendation. We are excited to see Moana 2 specifically. And I'm curious to see Gladiator. I had seeing the original Gladiator in the theater with a bunch of people, a PAX theater, like 20 years ago, however long it was ago, was like a really good movie experience. And so I'm curious to see if the follow-up to that, the sequel to Gladiator, also captures that experience. Oh, Garrett mentioned Stormlight 5. Yeah, I'm really excited about that, Garrett. Coming on Friday. Yeah, I'm hoping to finish the current book that I'm reading right now so I can be ready for Stormlight 5 on Friday. Oh, man, it's going to be awesome. Garrett's also watching Shrinking and Silo. Yeah, we're excited about Silo, too. We're waiting for a few more episodes to pile up before we jump into Silo. Oh, Chad says that Gears of Corruption, the Expeditions expansion, was one of his favorite surprises of 2024. And he says it helped that his love of Expeditions in many ways that he didn't realize it would. That was part of my goal for the game, to help improve the experience of Expeditions. As much as I love Expeditions, I think there were certain things that could be better, and hopefully I accomplished that goal with Gears of Corruption. Oh, Aaron says he just finished the second book in the Lies of Locke Lamora series. I've heard good things about that. I think I tried to get into it, but I couldn't quite get past the first, 100 pages or so of the first book, but maybe I should give it another try. And I'm glad you're enjoying it. Jacob mentions Michael Crichton's Sphere. I read that when I was like a teenager. And you're right, it is amazing. I can't remember. I don't know if I've seen the movie, but the book is really good in Sphere. I agree, Jacob. Yeah. Let's see. Board Gamer Eric says, it was nice to meet you at Unplugged last week. Yes, Eric. Thank you for actually your name makes sense now. I get it. I thought it was Board Gamer Eric, but no, it's Board Game Eric. That makes so much more sense. So Eric was very kind to stop by Unplugged, this game cafe that I was hanging out at on Saturday. I think Saturday. Eric, yeah, it was wonderful to meet you. Thank you for dropping by. And yeah, it kind of made my day there to have someone stop by and be so kind and nice. So yeah, you're lucky to have Unplugged so close to you. We have Pieces Board Game Cafe in St. Louis, so we're lucky to have that as well. But Unplugged, really, really cool space there for playing games. Ian says, when for Vantage? So putting Vantage into production this week, or pre-production this week. So there's about usually a month-long process of our manufacturer going through the files, making sure all the files meet their specifications, and then sending us a pre-production copy so we can make sure that the final version of the game is what we envisioned it to be after sending the digital files. So what will most likely happen is that pre-production process will probably take us right up until the Chinese New Year, and then nothing will happen during the Chinese New Year, and then production will start in mid-February, and production will probably for Vantage will take a full 4 months. So that puts us at mid-March, mid-April, mid-May, mid-June. I don't know. I'm hoping we can maybe accelerate pre-production a little bit, because I'd love to have it ship out of China in May if possible. That would be my ideal goal based on that schedule I just said. We're a little bit behind that schedule, but we'll see. It could be. I'm flexible. I want the game to be the best possible game that it can be. So if that takes some extra time, that's what it'll take. So I guess I'm cautious to throw out any estimates at this point, but currently we're probably looking at, based on those numbers, probably looking at July for Vantage, maybe August, maybe if we're lucky, late June. Yeah. Nicole says their pleasant surprise is how much I've grown to enjoy teaching new games to their game cafe. I love the research, watching videos, and reading rule books. From feedback, I'm pretty good at it. That's awesome, Nicole. I think that's wonderful. Very generous of you to enjoy doing that and to be willing to share games with others. I filmed a video just the other day. It hasn't been edited yet, but it's a video about love languages and gift giving, and how there are many ways to give gifts to gamers that aren't just games. And one of them is teaching games. That's that's an amazing, really amazing gift to someone who wants to learn one of those games on yourself of opportunity that you haven't played yet. And Nicole, you're doing this for many people at your game cafe. Here's Mark. Mark also, who one of the owners of Unplugged. Mark, it was great to see you again at Unplugged. Hoping to make that a yearly tradition, whether it's Thanksgiving or other times that I stop back in Virginia to see my family. But yeah, it was great of you to stop by. I'm glad things are going well. And yeah, everything about Unplugged is awesome. I love the food, the staff, the games that you have available there, the tables, the environment. You're doing a great job at Unplugged, Mark. Yeah, and it was very nice of you to stop by to say hi too. Stefan says some of the games that were a surprise to him this past year were Rogue Dungeon and Mind Bug. I think you've mentioned these on the livecast before, Stefan. Not much in common except these are two smallish box games. I'm curious about both of them, and I'm glad you're enjoying both of them. Luke, his pleasant surprise was Age of Comics. I haven't played that one yet, but I'm excited to try it. Let's see. Fail Official says that their group plays mostly heavier games. What would you consider Stonemeier's heaviest game? And is a game weight a big consideration when you begin making a game? You know, I don't usually target I guess the target at Stonemaier Games is that our games are generally, we try to make them event games. So we're not trying to make filler games, and we're not trying to make games that you need to set aside a whole day to play. An event game to me is a game that is the core focus of a game night. So games that are usually playing within 45 and 90 minutes are our sweet spot. So the weight isn't necessarily a consideration there as long as it can play in that playing time. I've definitely played games that are heavier that play in an hour, 90 minutes. And I've played games that are lighter that play in that time. I also played heavier games that play in much longer periods of time as well. What is our heaviest game? Probably Scythe. I would say Scythe is our heaviest game. I'm trying to think if anything pushes that boundary. I mean, we definitely have some games that skew heavier, but I think I would say that Scythe is the heaviest. Julio says that his best friend is in Japan right now, and today is his birthday. Happy birthday to your friend, Julio. Any good tips I could send his way? I did a whole series about Japan on my personal blog, JameyStegmaier.com. Any tips that you could send his way? So one thing that we enjoy doing, just a little tip in Japan, is that they have vending machines everywhere with a wide variety of drinks. And convenience stores with a wide variety of treats. I would suggest one recommendation that I have for the vending machines is to just try a different drink every time you're thirsty. You get to try so many different drinks there if you want to do that. And they're really fun drinks. And for the convenience stores, I'd recommend also kind of doing the same thing, trying a lot of different treats, but not eating all of them. Saving, like if you get a treat that your friend likes, and especially for his birthday, have him treat himself to a few different treats, but save half of them for when he gets back to the US. A lot of them, like the Poke, the Topo, they're packaged in a single package is 2 sets of treats. So you can eat one while you're there and enjoy it. And then when you get back, you can kind of have the other half and reminisce about just a fun little thing that we did that worked out surprisingly well. I'll answer a few more questions, then I'll jump over and talk about the newsletter for a little bit here. Sean says, what software do you use to broadcast to both Facebook and YouTube? Can you livecast on other medias as well? I have been using for about a year now. I've been using this thing called StreamYard. That's what I'm using right now, which makes it really easy for me to share my other screen so I can actually show images while talking about games and doing videos. And it lets me livecast. It also lets me record videos and post them in the future. Can I livecast on other medias? I don't know about that. I haven't tried that, so I don't know. I think maybe, but I'm not entirely sure. Brianna took the kiddos to see the 3D Moana too. That's cool. I don't think I'm seeing the 3D version. You enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm really excited to see it. Leon said a surprise for the last year was Koala Rescue Club. A lot of great surprises here from the last year. Melissa said, hopefully the proposed tariffs won't affect Vantage's release. I really hope so too. Really, really hope so. I must admit, Melissa, it's been, maybe I said this on a previous livecast, but I've spent literally years now working on making Vantage a game that isn't as expensive as it could be, because Vantage could be an incredibly expensive game given the number of components, the sheer amount of art, the custom dice. It has a lot of stuff in the game. But I've spent a lot of time and effort making specific design and product design decisions so that it wouldn't be too expensive. It will be an expensive game, but not too expensive. And just little discouraged that after all that work that that these tariffs could undo a lot of that work in one fell swoop. Yeah, so I'm hoping that they are not applied to board games. I really am hoping that. Edgar Edward says, when designing the did you use ideas from the original design that got cut, or was a lot of Gears new ideas? They were all new ideas. Yeah, whenever I design a game, every idea that works and that is fun and functional, it goes into the game. The only thing I can say that sometimes, I don't even want to say it's cut, but I'm picturing my InDesign documents here. So I put a lot of different, like there are a lot of different cards, a lot of different asymmetric mechs and characters in expeditions, and every now and then I have an idea for an ability that doesn't work. It doesn't play test well, and I kind of move it over to the margins in InDesign. And whenever I return to that game for an expansion, I look at those margins and I see, is there anything here? It didn't work before, but maybe was there anything here that I could use to inspire an ability that does work in the future? So I wouldn't quite say it's cut, ideas that are cut, but there are abilities that don't work in the original design for a game that I sometimes revisit to see if I could fix them or learn from what I now know about the game to put them in an expansion. Okay, let me jump over to the newsletter real quick. I'll pause on Garrett's question. I see Garrett has a question here, but let's go over to the newsletter for a minute and just skim through it and see some of the highlights here. So the main thing, or one of the big things, is that our annual survey is in today's update. This is really a big deal. I know these surveys, you probably get a lot of them at the end of the year, but we really do use the results of this survey to change the future of Stonemaier Games so that we can better serve you. So it is really helpful to hear about who you are and what your gaming preferences are through this survey. And as a little token of our appreciation, there is a little web store gift at the end of the survey that you can use for the next, I think, week and a half if you decide to get that. Yeah, through December 15th. Here is going back to the question very early on. Carlos, I believe, asked this question about some stuff looking back at the year. How do we sum up the year? This is kind of my summary of 2024. We had Wormspan, Gears of Corruption, Rolling Realms Redux, Stamp Swap, and Expanding the Hive. Those were the products that we released from the past year. Of course, there are many other ways that we try to bring joy to your tabletop through just our customer service, our communities. We applied a flat rate shipping this year to the web store through the YouTube channel, through these live streams. So those are all part of the experience that we're trying to provide to you and your tabletop and to your homes this year. So hopefully we're doing an okay job at bringing joy to you. And if not, let us know in the survey. There's an open question at the end of the survey where you can let us know anything you want. Yeah, here's a big picture showing all the things that we released this year, as well as a bunch of promos from Rolling Realms. And then, as I often do near the end of the year, I do a teaser about the next year. Some riddles here. So I have a little bit of riddles referring to 3 different products that we're hoping to release in 2025. And I also explain the riddles that I revealed in 2024. I won't go over that in detail right now on the livecast, but feel free to check that out. The link to this newsletter is in the description of this video. Some updates. Oh, PAX Unplugged. Yeah, PAX Unplugged is a big thing. A few of my coworkers, Alex and Dave, are going to be at PAX Unplugged. I think they're heading out today, actually, to be there. So if you're going to be at PAX Unplugged, or if you're watching this in the future of PAX Unplugged, feel free to say hi. I won't be at the booth, but Alex and Dave are far more delightful than I am. And so go say hi to them and see what we have going on at the booth. MeepleSource is also a wonderful partner for this booth at PAX Unplugged. Also, I think I mentioned this on a previous livecast, but our total charity auction donation spread between 10 different charities was over $35,000 this year. Part of that's due to the very generous people who won the auction items, the 10 people who won the auction items. Part of it's due to anyone who bought the stone eggs for Wormspan during that charity auction. And part of it is also the money match from Fulfill Right and from Stonemaier Games for those winning bids. So yeah, always feels good to do that. Also, I was hoping that we could have the Ironclad reprint and the metal mechs back in stock for Gears of Corruption in December, but they're not going to make it. Shipping is very slow and busy in the holiday season. They're not going to make it, but they're going to be there in mid-January on our web store. So sorry about that if you were waiting for that for the holiday season, but they're coming soon. And as usual, I have our big project chart showing ahead for the next year, and the other stuff in the newsletter, most read articles, most watched videos, best-selling products, and what we've been playing lately. One thing I didn't add to this, because I just played it yesterday, was the game Conquest Princess. I learned and played that yesterday. So yeah, if you have any questions about the newsletter, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. Garrett says, I imagine Panda has quite a full schedule, which limits their ability to print immediately. Is that ever an issue when you submit an order to them, or do they typically get started right away? So Panda, I don't know the full answer to that, Garrett, but the way I think it works with Panda is that they have a very deliberate queue that they work through to make sure that they can give every game that they produce the time and attention that it deserves. We are a major client of theirs, but I'd never want to step on the toes of a smaller or newer publisher, a new creator who's also doing a smaller print run. So I think Panda does a great job of managing that, and I don't ask for special exceptions to that queue. I think that's part of the reason why Panda can take a few weeks to or a few months really to produce a game, and even to reprint a game, because they go through that process and that queue. So they do. Their pre-production team does get started right away. So there's so many layers to this process of them reviewing the files, them, I think, creating like the templates and the die cuts and all the things they need to enter the print run. And then they have to actually print everything and sometimes outsource some of the components. Oftentimes they make some of the non-printed components in-house. So that's a whole process they have to go through. Their glue needs to dry on punch boards, for example. So they need to glue to dry properly so things don't warp. And then there's the assembly process. So all that stuff happens. And then there's the process of actually putting all those things together into the final versions of the game. I think that's usually the fastest part of the process. But yeah, so many different steps there. And then we still have to freight ship everything. So I don't know if I've quite answered your question here, but it is a process, and it just always takes some time. But they always do start on the pre-production side of it right away. Saying all that reminded me of a thing that I need to look into after the live cast. I was talking about, I asked the question, have you ever bought a plane ticket for a trip that is happening in the next couple of days? And Tim says, last week he actually did. Tim bought a plane ticket for the next day because he was stuck on a plane in a freak snowstorm in South Korea. And thankfully the airline was able to cancel it when they rebooked me. Wow. Yeah, that's very short notice, Tim. And hopefully you were able to get where you needed to go despite the snowstorm. I see some other surprises here. I'm going to flip forward to questions here real quick. Stefan says, one question, are you flying to China when producing the game or remote controlling the process? No, I've never been to China. We work with Panda. Panda is a Canadian company with their main facility in China. And I work over email with Shannon, our project manager, who manages that process for us. And he does a lot of correspondence. Shannon also isn't in China. He's in Canada, and he corresponds with his coworkers in China. Oh, Wendy has a pretty cool news here. She says she bought a copy of the Raw dice game, which I haven't played. I played both versions of Raw, but not the dice game. And she says when she opened it, she found the board had been signed by both Reiner Knizia and the artist at Gen Con. That's really, really cool, Wendy. That's a really neat surprise. Luke says that he ordered prototypes for a card game, but the postal strike has put them in limbo. The manufacturer has offered to expedite a new order if I pay for it. I can afford it, but it's a conundrum. I have plans for these prototypes. Any advice, any similar situations? Oh, Luke, that's unfortunate. Where's the postal strike? I didn't realize there was a postal strike happening right now. That seems problematic wherever it's happening. I would probably wait it out unless there's something urgent that you really, really need the prototype for right away. Like if they're nice prototypes that you're trying to share with reviewers, for example, and you're on a tight timeline, sure, then I might buy them again. But if you're not on that timeline, maybe if this is just for playtesting locally, you might just print out a prototype at home and work from that until the nicer prototype arrives. I can see that being very frustrating, though. I'm sorry you're going through that. Brian is really enjoying Star Realms. And we're excited, actually, Brian, to dive into the Star Realms, a legacy game that we just received very recently. I think we might start that this weekend. Shul says, just finished a 4-player game of Scythe, but forgot that we can negotiate and bribe. How often do you see players do that? Pretty rarely. Pretty rarely. I think Scythe, I think it's very rare that I see that. I put that in the rules more so because I found from previous experiences that if I don't put that in the rules, if I don't put what you're allowed to negotiate or trade in a game, that some players will assume that they can trade or negotiate with anything. And so I have very specific rules inside about what you're allowed to do, but it's really very rarely used. Melissa from Tantrum House says that she was pleasantly surprised by the quality of card games and small box games published this year. Some of her favorites are Castle Combo, Faraway, The Gang, Rebel Princess, and Rivages. I am familiar with and loved all those except for Rivages, which I haven't played. I need to check that out if you've included that in that group of games. Melissa, that's a really nice highlight. And one of the things I love about all these games is that all of them have a memorable aesthetic look to them. Subjectively, some people may like one look more than the other, but I like that they all really leaned into a specific aesthetic, which I think is one of the neat things to do in a card game. If you only have cards in a game, you're not going to have some highlight component, but aesthetically, you can really focus on them and make them really beautiful. And I think all these games did that really, really well. And I need to make a note of Rivages and check that out if I can. Also, many of the games that Melissa mentions here are available on Board Game Arena if you want to check them out. Let's see. I'm just looking for a few. Let's see if there's any questions here. Derek says, will Stonemaier have a dedicated booth at PAX Unplugged? We will. Let's see if I mention it in the newsletter. I don't have the booth. No. Oh, no, here it is. Booth number 3051. 3051. And if you forget that, if you're watching this live, it is in our newsletter in the various updates section. Okay, Ian says that Canada Post is on strike. Are you using any alternatives for delivery in Canada? That's a good question. I wasn't aware of the strike until right now, so I need to look into that and see how our shipping in Canada is going. Yeah, I will check into that after I get off this this live cast. That isn't something I typically handle. Joe probably has a grasp on it. Joe, that's part of what Joe manages with fulfillment centers, but I'll definitely check that out. I appreciate the heads up. Chris says, what was the weirdest place you found inspiration for a game decision in a game? Game decision, interesting. Oh, for a design decision, like worker placement options for going through an airport or something. The weirdest place you found inspiration for a design decision. That's a great question, Chris. I don't know if I'll have an answer off the top of my head. You're right that sometimes game design decisions or mechanisms come from unexpected places. Oftentimes they come from playing other games, digital games, or learning about other games, whether they're digital games or tabletop games. But sometimes they come from weird places. Every now and then they come from, like, I see a completely unrelated product and I see how it was like packaged or a graphic design element of it. Maybe not always impacting the mechanisms of the game, but the product design overall. But off the top of my head, I'm trying to think if I can think of anything like that. And I can't right now, but if I do, I love that question and I'll let you know later on in the live cast. Chad says, are you afraid that you'll run out of 4-letter words for your code names? There are a lot of 4-letter words. There are even companies that only use 4-letter words for their game names, which I think is a little restrictive, but it's become their thing to do that. But no, for code names, no, I don't think we'll ever run out of 4-letter words for that. Leon says, with concerns about tariffs, if a game was produced in the US, would it be 4 times more expensive or even more? So honestly, my concern about producing in the US, or really the reason that we don't produce in the US, isn't about the cost. It's about feasibility. The things that we make in China are not manufactured in the US. All the little components, the little bits and bobs, even oftentimes the type of materials that we use to make cards and player mats, and the processes that we use to make player mats, dual layered mats, and the boxes, they just aren't available in the US. There are manufacturers in the US who print cardboard things, but they're very limited. Very limited in terms of the quality and the components. So even if of the few components that are able to be made in the US, they are still, I think generally they're lower quality than those that we make in China. The other part of it, and a really important thing I think to remember about production and publishing and tariffs is that we're like many other publishers. We are a worldwide company. Like no matter where we make our games, we are shipping them worldwide. And so the cost of freight shipping is, I don't want to say negligible, but by manufacturing in one specific place, you don't necessarily save on shipping to all the other places that you want to sell that game. I get it. And really overall, it is not all that much about costs. Things are more expensive to make in the US. That is a concern. But the greater concern is that most of the types of things that we see in modern games are not made in many places other than China. There are a few exceptions to that. In Europe, there are a few exceptions in particular. There are some exceptions in the US as well. But if we wanted to make all 18 Stonemaier games that we have in the US, or that we currently have, and we wanted to make them in the US, I literally don't think it would be possible. In fact, I know it would not be possible to make those games, to make all the components in those games in the US. Yeah. Garrett says, how are things progressing on Inkborn? So Inkborn is a digital roguelike deck builder that I personally invested in and am acting as kind of a consultant developer on, that is being made by Acram Studios, Acram Digital. They make Charterstone Digital as well. So this is a personal thing, not a Stonemaier thing, but I appreciate the question. And my role right now is kind of to wait until they have the new build ready, and then I play test it and offer them feedback. So I'm in the waiting period right now. I think the new build is ready, should be ready in mid-December, and then I get to play test it and offer them feedback. So I'm excited for that to happen. But the last I played the game, I think, was before Japan, and offered some feedback on that. So I'm hoping to get it back soon and play it. I've had a great time playing it so far, and they've been very receptive to my feedback, which is nice. Jordan says, who do you think will win Survivor this season? I'm hesitant to say that because some people might be behind on it, Jordan. I don't want to spoil anything. I will say that one of the people that I was hoping to win has been voted out. So I won't name that person, but that person has been voted out. I would say there are actually a few people left. Yeah, I'm going to be super vague with this answer, Jordan. But there are a few people left that I think have played a really, really excellent game. And I am hoping to see them in the final three. I wouldn't mind seeing all of them in the final three. I love when all three people at the end are considered viable candidates to win. And I'm hoping that we'll have something like that this season. Usually it's two people are viable winners, not all three. Nate says, there's some chatter recently about the potential demise of Elf Creek. Have I considered, or would you consider acquiring Honeybuzz? A 5-player expansion would be awesome. And that is one of the things. Any game that we publish has to go up to 5 players. Nate, my answer to this is really complicated, and I probably shouldn't go into it in too detail, but there is a conflict of interest related to something that I personally did to help out Elf Creek. Jamey did this, not Stonemaier Games. That creates a conflict of interest with Stonemaier Games. And so Stonemaier Games cannot do that with Elf Creek. We cannot acquire their brands. I'm hoping for the best for Elf Creek. And I made I tried to help them personally in a way that hopefully will yield some decent results in the future. The help that I provided them was over a year ago. Yeah. I can't talk much more about that, or I shouldn't talk much more about that, but really, I wouldn't have helped them if I didn't believe in what they were doing, and I still do. I think I wish the best for them. I really do on multiple levels that I won't go into here. Sean says, I wonder how many game mechanisms have been designed by misinterpreting the rules to an existing game and then realizing the misinterpretation opened up interesting design space. So, Sean, this is like one of the best things about the game design process, in particular. And it happens with published games too, but especially during the game design process when things are still pliable, seeing how players, seeing what players do out of their intuition instead of maybe what you intended them to do, and then leaning into that, observing that and being like, okay, you did this thing that is different than the actual rule of the game, but you found this more intuitive or more functional or more fun, and making that the actual rule for the game rather than the rule that you intended. It's one of the great things that you can do from observational game design, local playtesting in particular. Yeah. And really, actually, it's one of the reasons that one of the questions that I now ask when I do blind playtesting is I ask, is there anything that you forgot to do or that you did incorrectly while playing? I want to know what that is, because oftentimes that might lead to me either removing something that players are forgetting, adding to the user interface so they don't forget it, or just changing the rule so it is the thing that's more easy to remember, or that they do more intuitively. I see a nice comment from George here. He says, we got Stamp Swap. He's never played an I Cut You Choose game before. And he says, we felt it would be great for our autistic son who has a lot of trouble making such decisions. This game forced him to deal with this. It was hard for him, but in a good way, especially as he loves both gold and chocolate. I do love those rare stamps. He's been learning that choosing these aren't always the best idea because they don't fit into the scoring categories, which is a great next level play, a great family game. So happy for you to share that, George. And I'm glad that your autistic son has blossomed a little bit in terms of the decisions that he's making through Stamp Swap. That's really wonderful to hear. Nick 1700 says, does Expeditions have any digital implementations on Board Game Arena or Tabletopia? It does. It's on Tabletopia. For Board Game Arena, we usually look for our games to be on Board Game Arena around 2 to 3 years after release. So we're still not quite there with Expeditions. Have I licensed the rights for a standalone app to a developer? There is a developer working on an app, a little slowly. They have some other projects in the works. So they're working on that for Expeditions. And Board Game Arena, the way Board Game Arena works with us is that we let them know when a game is available for them to put on Board Game Arena. And if they have a developer doing that, they reach out to us and let us know. And then usually it's about a year after they start working on it that it actually appears on Board Game Arena. Michael, yeah, I saw this post on the Viticulture Facebook group. Michael and his wife played a seasonal worker variant in regular Viticulture with Mahir last Saturday during his visit to the Philippines. That's really cool that you get to play a game of Viticulture with Mahir. He is the co-designer of Viticulture World. Yeah. Let's see. Tim says, if tariffs are applied to the manufacturing cost, I believe they're applied to the landed cost, but it's the invoice cost. You're right. It's the manufacturing cost. Do you see the amount transferring to the MSRP as the fixed increase or scale percentage? I don't exactly know yet, Tim, but I think what will most likely happen if there's a tariff on goods produced in China, which the next president has said could be as much as 60 to 80%. I think part of that margin will be eaten by the publishers, and part of that will result in increased prices, MSRPs, which will be eaten by consumers. So I think it'll be partially split between those two parties. Ray says, any interesting preliminary results from the champion survey sent out yesterday? It was actually a general survey to everyone. I sent it in the champion newsletter, but it was also sent to all newsletter subscribers. I haven't looked at it yet, Ray, because I tend to find if I look at those survey results too early, it isn't indicative of the overall, hopefully a few thousand people will fill it out. So I haven't looked at it yet, but I'll probably look at it later today or tomorrow to see anything that we might start learning from them. Oh, Nicole reminds me, what is today's chocolate of the day? Thank you, Nicole, for asking that. Probably... Oh, I do have a chocolate chip cookie. I got the cookie before we left for Thanksgiving. I put it in the freezer. Now it's out of the freezer. It is a cookie from Sweet Art here in St. Louis. I think Sweet Art has some of the best chocolate chip cookies in St. Louis, maybe even the best. Definitely top 3. And they're vegan. They are vegan cookies, which is incredible to me. How much you can do with a vegan baked goods. And Sweet Art makes really, really good baked goods and really good fake fried chicken. Yeah, if you're ever in St. Louis, I highly recommend checking out Sweet Art, even just for the chocolate chip cookies, but especially if you're a vegan or vegetarian. Check out Sweet Art for their food. That's my chocolate of the day today, Nicole. Anthony says, oh yeah, Arc Nova is coming out on Steam. That's exciting from Direwolf. I'm excited to see that. And Chad says, what a hidden trader mechanism in Stonemaier Games. Have I ever tried to design one? If so, what were the biggest challenges? I don't think I've tried to put hidden trader into a game yet. Not that I can recall. Maybe it's possible. It's a mechanism that seems like one that I would play around with. I could see it. I could see it fitting in there somewhere into a game someday. Because I do like. I think games are a good outlet for sneakiness. I think there's probably something in all of us that likes to be a little sneaky every now and then, and getting that out of our system in games in a low stakes environment is a great way to do it. So I love games that let players be a little sneaky. I have a whole video about my top 10 favorite games where players get to be a little sneaky. And so a hidden trader mechanism, I think, is a great way to do that, or one of the ways to do that. Rosie says, what's on my Christmas list? Rosie, I don't really have a Christmas list. I think, so my love language, especially for any sort of gift giving, is acts of service. And so the best gift I think that someone can give me in the gaming space is to learn a game and teach me how to play that game. That is the biggest way that someone can show their care and affection and love for me. So that is my love language for games, and the thing that maybe I wish for year round, but at Christmas especially, it's really nice if someone is willing to teach a game to me. And I always feel very loved when someone does that, just in general, especially if they know it's a game that I'm really excited about. So yeah, that's my love language. And I do have, I mentioned earlier, I have a video that I filmed recently about it's a gift guide through the lens of love languages, where I talk about actual, like, physical tangible gifts, like actual games or accessories or things that go on a shelf. But I also talked about acts of service. I talked about quality time, quantity time, and words of affirmation. And so I broke down those categories and how, based on the person in your life or you, that you might look at someone's gift giving, or might look at the gift giving process through that lens this holiday season. Oh, and I love this. Rosie, you answered this perfectly. She says that her husband always writes on his Christmas list, time to play more games. Time, yeah, time. Either I break this down into quality time and quantity time. Quantity time is just like a lot of time doing something, like hosting a gaming day with someone who loves that quantity time together, versus quality time. I think I mentioned some ideas like picking the game, in this case, maybe your husband, the game that your husband loves, that he asked to play more often than you asked to play, and being like, hey, I want to play this game with you. I want to play this game that you love, and having that quality time with someone, I think, can be really special. Chad says, Arcs is now ranked 188 on Board Game Geek and has been on the hot list since it released. Do you have any ideas on why it resonates with so many people? That's a great question, Chad. Yeah, I played Arcs once earlier this year, and I filmed a video about it. I think Arcs, I don't know. Actually, it's hard to answer that off the top of my head. You're right that it has really risen up that ranks. I think the aesthetic is really beautiful, has some really neat mechanisms in it. But there are certainly, I think part of it might be the focus on the game in terms of how much the players impact each other's experience at the table, for better or for worse in some ways. And I think that is something that the designer Cole really focuses on in his games, how the players are impacting each other. And so perhaps that having a game like that has really resonated with people this year. Rick says, what game that you played this year wowed you the most mechanically? Well, Rick, I haven't made my top 10 list this year, and someone actually recommended the other day that I make a list of my top 10 favorite mechanisms from the past year, which I really like that idea. I think I'll do that this year. So I need to do that. So I haven't actually ranked my top 10 games from the past year yet. So I don't have an answer to that. I will have an answer to that soon, Rick, but I don't have an answer for it yet. I usually wait until the end of the year. I don't do my top 10 list of 2024 until 2024 is over, because I still, I'll play games all the way through December 31st probably. So I'll film my video about that and my videos about that after December 31st. Zachary has a question about a code name. Zachary, I'm not going to, the information that I'm willing to give about the code names is the information on the progress chart. And I'll show you the progress chart. Here's what we're looking at right now. So here's where we are right now. It is showing that we are complete with the print and assemble stage, and we are on the freight shipping stage right now. That's in progress for Codename Crow. That's what I can say about Codename Crow right now. Ray says, have I played Tsuro? Is that the one that you tried before? I have not played Tsuro. So no, that's one that I haven't played yet. So I need to play. I think that's a kind of a modern classic abstract game. I need to play that one. Oh, I wanted to mention before we sign off, near the end here, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Man vs. Meeple. They've been an amazing content creator for a long time. I appreciate them just as a gamer and as a designer to enjoy their content. And they have a campaign right now on GameFound to help sponsor the next season of Man vs. Meeple. So I'm a supporter of it personally. And this isn't a Stonemaier Games thing. This is just Jamey saying, I really appreciate Man vs. Meeple, and they have a campaign right now. So if you appreciate their content, it's a good time to give them a little support on GameFound. I have a few other quick, I did a video this past weekend about, and my blog post on Monday was about 3 steps to self-publish a game, a topic that comes up a lot in questions on these videos. And so I filmed a video about that process of, if you have decided to self-publish the game that you designed, what are the big steps and the big things to do for that journey? The video distills a lot of long topics into a short video. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's on YouTube now. It's also on the Stonemaier Games blog. The other neat little highlight, a little thing, very little thing, but it was meaningful to me, is that while we were waiting in Baltimore to fly back to St. Louis, I recognized someone who was somewhat famous at the Baltimore airport. He was sitting in he was going to get on the same plane as us. And I decided to go say hi and just let him know that I appreciate his work. His name is Jamey. He's on American Ninja Warrior. He always has green hair, and he's been on American Ninja Warrior for a long time. He has a famous run where he lost his shoes on a certain stage and kept going and actually completed the run in a very short amount of time without shoes on. Anyway, someone that I've enjoyed watching on TV for a long time. And I found, me personally, I don't, sometimes I get a little nervous around someone that I've watched on TV or watched on stage, or I enjoyed their music. And sometimes in the past, I have not gone up to that person and said how much I appreciate them. And so it was kind of a step for me to actually get over that nervousness or that fear and just go up to Jamey. I spent 15 seconds with him and just said that I appreciate him being awesome on American Ninja Warrior, and kind of just left it at that. And he was really, really very, very nice through the interaction. And something that I've realized, the same thing for me, if my work has ever brought joy to someone, and that person sees me at a game convention and they come up and say that to me, that really does mean a lot to me. So I've been trying to work on reciprocating that to the other people that I see, if I do see someone who has created work that has added value to my life. So little thing that happened in the airport in Baltimore this past weekend. Melissa says, there's a very active board gaming community developing on Blue Sky. See, you haven't posted in a while. That is true, Melissa. It is tough for me to add another social media aspect to Stonemaier Games, but you're right that I am on there. So maybe I'll try to schedule a weekly post there just to be a little more active there. You're right that we do have an account now on Blue Sky, but I'm not particularly active there. So I'll make a note about that. Maybe a weekly post about what's going on in Stonemaier Games at Blue Sky. Julie says, what is a mechanism you've enjoyed that you don't see in games as much? Ooh, that's a fun question. There's a few that come to mind that I want to use. So I don't necessarily want to mention those. So one that I have not figured out how to use, but I'd love to see in more games, is the cascading card mechanism in Hall of the Mountain King, or Fall of the Mountain King. I think it's Hall of the Mountain King. They're so similar in name that I confuse the two. But there's a cascading system where you had this, the more cards you added to your tableau, you cascade their effects down the series of cards. It's a really cool mechanism, really streamlined, but it's really, really satisfying. I'd love to see that in more games. Yeah. Trishul says, how does the customs fee work while shipping worldwide from the Stonemaier Games website to markets like India and Japan? To India and Japan, we actually ship. Well, we do ship. You're right. We ship from the Stonemaier Games website. We ship from Australia. In that case, are there some orders or total amounts that are subject to it while others are not? It's a good question. I don't know the answer specifically country by country. But you're right that we have regional fulfillment centers that ship to certain places where we don't have fulfillment centers, like India and Japan. You mentioned those here. And in some of those places, there are customs, others there are not. But I don't know the specifics of every country. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a specific answer about that. Well, Eric, I mentioned meeting people that maybe you've seen on screen. And Eric, I really appreciate that you did that. That meant a lot to me that you stopped by Unplugged to say hi and chatted for a little bit there. And you weren't interrupting anything. I hope you didn't feel that way. We were wrapping up. We were finished with our game and ready to kind of not in a rush to be headed home after that. Oh, cool. Chad says that he met Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, in a business meeting, and then Stanley on the street an hour later. No relation, I'm assuming. Michael says, have I tried playing a game designed by a Filipino? I played some of those games under the Larong Atin brand. So, Michael, I can't say that I know the ethnicity of every game designer of whose games that I've played. I think, given the number of games that I've played, I think it's very, very likely that I have played a game from a Filipino designer. But I don't know offhand. Yeah. Rosie Bucket says, I have a TikTok channel too. Indeed, Stonemaier Games does have a TikTok channel. We don't use that really at all, but we have it there more just so we have the Stonemaier Games name for TikTok. I kind of, there was a time where I intended to start filming something for TikTok, and maybe I should at some point, but it's at a certain point, it's tough for me to manage so many different social media accounts. So I have the Stonemaier Games blog, I have Facebook, I have Instagram, and the YouTube channel. It's a lot to manage those, and I enjoy managing those. I enjoy participating and posting on those, and not just posting, but also being involved in the conversation that evolves afterward. Oh, also, and in Board Game Geek too. So that's why it's tough, I think, to meet to add another one and actively be involved there. Because if I do it, I don't want to just kind of partially do it. I want to actually be involved with it. Chad says, yeah, Captain NBC. That's Jamey Ron. Yeah, he's awesome. Trishul says, let's see, Stonemaier Games website checkout process. There's a UX issue where the customer can't change their address if an old address is stuck in PayPal or shop pay records, ending up with a loop of no delivery available. Thanks for the heads up about that. I don't know if that's something that we can fix, but we can at least let Shopify know about that, and I will send it to our web developer. Thank you for letting me know about that. Let's see. Yeah, just a few more positive questions here. Oh, Rosie says that she is the communications person for Cardboard Alchemy, so she knows how it is to juggle so many different social media platforms. Thanks for sharing that, Rosie. Do you have a favorite one that you're using right now? One that hopefully brings you joy in addition to the joy that you're bringing those who pay attention to it? Board Game Eric says, the question is, girlfriend and him always ask, when do you ever sleep? You're so involved in so many social media platforms. Sleep is actually really important to me. So I sleep every night. Usually Walter lets me get around 8 hours of sleep. Depends on the night. Yeah, usually it's around 8 hours. Yeah, 11 to 7. So I get a good night's sleep every night. And then when I wake up, I work from home. I think that's one of the things. I work from home. So when I get up, I am almost immediately at work, and I stay at work until I go to bed, with breaks for meals and social stuff, of course. I have seen, this is a good point. Rosie mentions that Ryan Lockett from Red Raven Games has been making some very lovely design insight reels and TikToks, which are fun to follow. Yeah, and I guess the thing for me that I've seen partially is that TikTok is very reel friendly now too. I am more focused on, or I'm more interested as a consumer, as a peruser of Instagram, in images, still images, than the videos. But it has been really neat to see that Instagram has been so reel friendly, which has made me even less likely to go on TikTok to do that same type of content. Yeah, you don't need to worry about my sleep. I do get plenty of sleep, Eric. I appreciate you being concerned about that, though. I think we've covered everything today. I have the newsletter. If you have any questions about that, you can always ask on our website. And I think we've talked about everything else today. So yeah, I think there might be, I mentioned Man vs. People. There might be a live stream for Man vs. People right after this. Feel free to check that out if you'd like. I could be wrong about that though too. One other thing. Trishul says, do you publish any best of year list or videos around Christmas every year? Yeah, I mentioned this a few minutes ago. I publish my 2024 list after 2024 is over. So you'll see those lists in early January from me. Oh, Rosie, I have a question for Rosie she says, she started on TikTok making review videos for fun, and it's a joy to see new people discovering board gaming as the algorithm is great for discovering things that you like. I think that's a testament to TikTok. We actually just watched a really interesting video about TikTok on last week tonight, yesterday. A very enlightening video about TikTok. Some things I didn't know about it, and not necessarily in a bad way at all. Yeah. Nolan says on the website bugs, when browsing the Stonemaier store on mobile, the site will show the wish list and cart icons twice after adding an item to the cart. Thank you, Nolan. I appreciate that as well. I'll let our web developer know about that too. Thank you, Nicole, and everyone else for being here today for this chat. As always, it's really fun to just hang out with you for an hour here and chat and chat in real time. It's really fun to do that. And yeah, have a great week. Have a great Wednesday. And thank you if you do, or if you have, thank you for filling out our annual survey. I really, really do appreciate that. That's in the newsletter that you can find on our website and in the description below. All right. Have a great Wednesday, great week. I'll see you next week. Bye.